Before we begin, I want you to do something. As you watch this video, tell me in the comments, which place looked the safest to you at first, and which one turned out to be the most terrifying? Because that's the disturbing thing about today's list. These are not places that look cursed. They don't look violent. They don't look like the kind of places that belong in a nightmare. In fact, many of them look beautiful. Some look peaceful enough for a vacation postcard. Some look so calm, so silent, and so untouched that you would never think twice about standing there. But that is exactly what makes them dangerous. Because the deadliest places on Earth are not always the ones covered in ash, flames, or destruction. Sometimes, they are the places that smile at you. A bright blue lake, a still desert at sunset, a quiet volcanic island surrounded by ocean, a landscape so beautiful it almost feels unreal. And yet, in these places, the air itself can kill you, the water can burn you, the ground can betray you, and the silence around you can be more dangerous than any warning siren. Tonight, on Sherlock Hopes, we're exploring 7 of the most dangerous places on Earth that look peaceful. And by the end of this video, you may never look at beauty in quite the same way again. Death Valley sounds dangerous. Its name is already a warning. And yet, visually, it does not always look threatening. In photographs, it can look magnificent. Vast plains of sand and stone, golden light spilling across empty ridges, salt flats stretching like snow under the sun, a huge open sky with almost no sign of human presence. There is a strange beauty to it, a quiet, stripped-down beauty, the kind of place that makes people stop and stare because it feels almost otherworldly. And that is part of the trap. Death Valley doesn't usually kill with spectacle. It kills with environment. There is no dramatic predator waiting for you. No obvious cliff edge in every direction. No cinematic countdown. Instead, the danger is much more patient. It comes from heat so intense that your body begins losing control long before your mind fully understands what is happening. It comes from dehydration that sneaks up on you. It comes from exposure, exhaustion, and distance. That is what makes Death Valley so frightening. It doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like a slow subtraction of your strength, your awareness, your judgment. You begin by thinking you can handle it. Maybe you underestimate how far you are from shelter. Maybe you think you have enough water. Maybe the landscape looks so open that it feels manageable. But open terrain can be deceptive. In a place like Death Valley, openness does not mean safety. It means exposure. There is very little protection from the sun, little shade, little margin for error. And when the temperature rises to extreme levels, even a simple mechanical problem, a flat tire, a stalled car, a missed trail, a short walk that becomes longer than expected, can turn into a life-threatening situation. What makes Death Valley one of the most unsettling places on Earth is its silence. It is not chaotic. It is not dramatic. It is not visually screaming at you to stay away. It simply waits. And that stillness can create a false sense of control. The landscape looks passive. but the conditions are merciless. There is also something psychologically disturbing about places like this. The scenery is so beautiful, so still, and so vast that people can forget they are standing inside an environment that has no interest in keeping them alive. That is why Death Valley belongs on this list, because it proves that danger does not have to be violent to be deadly. Sometimes it is dry, sometimes it is bright, sometimes it is quiet enough to feel peaceful, and sometimes that peace is exactly what makes people lower their guard. Yellowstone is one of the most beautiful natural places in the world. Its geothermal pools look like something from another planet. Bright rings of orange and red, deep blue centers so vivid they seem unreal. Steam drifting across the landscape like fog in a dream. People don't look at Yellowstone's hot springs and think of death. They think of wonder. They think of beauty. They think of one of the great natural treasures of North America. And visually, they are right. But Yellowstone's beauty is part of what makes it dangerous. Because those colors are not gentle. They are signs of extreme heat, chemical activity, and geological instability just beneath the surface. The most terrifying thing about Yellowstone's thermal areas is how deceptively fragile the ground can be. In some places, the earth may look solid enough to walk on, but underneath can be boiling water, acidic mud, or thin crusts covering immense heat. That means the danger is not always where you expect it. It is under you. And that is what makes Yellowstone so uniquely disturbing. The hazard is hidden in plain sight. You are not looking at a lake in the ordinary sense. You are looking at an opening into a geothermal system powerful enough to reshape the earth itself. These pools look serene because they are still. The water is often calm. The steam can even make the entire place feel peaceful, almost sacred. But stillness here is an illusion. Beneath that still surface is heat strong enough to destroy skin and bone in moments. One wrong step off a boardwalk, one moment of curiosity, one careless attempt to get a closer photo, and the scenery can turn instantly from beautiful to catastrophic. There is also something deeply eerie about the way Yellowstone presents danger. Unlike a storm or a wildfire, it does not chase you. It doesn't have to. It simply exists, quietly, elegantly, almost invitingly. That is why thermal landscapes are so deceptive. They challenge one of our strongest instincts, the belief that calm water is safe water. In Yellowstone, the clearest, most beautiful pools can be among the most dangerous. The brighter the color, the more mesmerizing the scene. The easier it is to forget that what you are seeing is not a harmless natural pond. It is heat from deep within the earth, reaching up to the surface through a fragile shell. Yellowstone teaches a brutal lesson. Beauty is not always a welcome sign. Sometimes, it is a warning too beautiful to read correctly. If you saw Kawah Ijen without context, you might think it was one of the most magical places on Earth. The crater contains a surreal turquoise lake surrounded by rugged volcanic rock. At dawn, the light gives the landscape an almost ethereal quality. It doesn't look threatening. It looks mythical. It feels like the kind of place that belongs in fantasy, a hidden world, untouched and mysterious. But Kawah Ijen is not a fantasy landscape. It is a chemically hostile environment, shaped by volcanic forces, toxic gases, and one of the most extreme crater lakes on Earth. That glowing lake is not inviting water. It is intensely acidic. And that contrast between appearance and reality is what makes Kawah Ijen unforgettable. Blue water usually suggests life, calm, and clarity. We are conditioned to trust it. We are conditioned to think of coolness, peace, and safety. But at Kawah Ijen, that instinct fails completely. The beauty of the lake hides an environment that can injure, poison, or overwhelm the human body. The surrounding crater is known for volcanic gas, including sulfur compounds that can become extremely dangerous, especially in concentrated conditions. This is what makes the place so disturbing. The danger is not cinematic in the usual way. It is atmospheric. You don't need falling rocks or an explosion for the environment to become deadly. You just need the wrong gas conditions, the wrong exposure, or the wrong assumption. And that is the theme running through this entire list. The most deceptive places are often the ones that look the least aggressive. Kawah Ijen almost looks peaceful because the violence there is invisible. The crater is not screaming. The lake is not crashing. The scene feels still, but it is the stillness of chemistry, heat, and toxic geology working in silence. Even the aesthetic beauty of the place makes it more unnerving. There is something deeply unsettling about a deadly place that looks this mesmerizing. Because it raises a difficult question. How many beautiful things in the world are dangerous precisely because they know how to hide it? Kawah Ijen feels like one of nature's cruelest illusions. A place so visually breathtaking that your instincts want to move closer, even though every step should remind you that this is not beauty designed for human comfort. It is beauty shaped by the Earth's deepest and most hostile forces. And that may be the most chilling kind of beauty of all. There are few things more deceptive than a volcano that looks calm. Whakaari, also known as White Island, sits off the coast of New Zealand like something from a dream. A remote island surrounded by ocean, isolated from the mainland, with steam drifting from its volcanic surface. At a distance, it can look almost peaceful, a lonely piece of land in open water. Strange, beautiful, cinematic. It doesn't look like the kind of place that could turn deadly in seconds. But that is exactly the danger. Whakaari is not simply a scenic island. It is an active volcanic system. And active volcanoes do not need to pour out lava to be lethal. This is one of the biggest misconceptions people have about volcanic danger. They imagine huge eruptions, rivers of fire, giant ash clouds blotting out the sky. But some volcanic environments are deadly, even when they appear quiet. Gas emissions, unstable surfaces, sudden steam-driven explosions, and rapid changes in pressure can turn a seemingly calm crater into a place of instant catastrophe. That is what makes White Island so haunting. It can look stable while remaining deeply unstable. It can appear quiet while still being full of pressure. It can seem dormant to the eye, even when the geology beneath it is anything but asleep. And that is a terrifying kind of danger, because it robs people of the warning signs they trust most. Humans tend to look for motion. We look for noise. We look for visible chaos. When those things are absent, we relax. But volcanic systems don't care about what looks calm to the human eye. A crater can be steaming gently one moment and become catastrophic the next. And because volcanic danger is often tied to processes underground, the visual surface can be misleading right up to the point where it isn't. That is what gives Fakati such a disturbing quality. Its beauty feels lonely and serene. The ocean around it only adds to the illusion. It looks separate from the world, almost meditative, but inside that isolation is a landscape shaped by pressure, heat, gas, and constant geological unrest. There is something especially chilling about islands like this, because islands often symbolize escape, paradise, solitude, a retreat from danger. Fakati flips that symbol upside down. Here, isolation does not mean safety, it means vulnerability. And the calm view from a distance tells you almost nothing about the violence that may be building beneath your feet. Lake Kivu is breathtaking. If you saw it in a travel documentary, you would probably think of it as one of the most beautiful lakes in Africa. Blue water stretching between green hills, fishing boats drifting across the surface, villages, shorelines, and a sense of peace that feels almost timeless. Nothing about Lake Kivu looks monstrous. And that is what makes it one of the most psychologically disturbing places on this list. Because beneath that beautiful surface lies a hidden threat that most people would never imagine when looking at a lake. Deep below, Lake Kivu contains enormous quantities of dissolved gases, especially methane and carbon dioxide. In ordinary conversation, that may not sound cinematic, but the implications are chilling. Because under the wrong conditions, such a lake carries the risk of a limnic eruption, a sudden release of dissolved gas from deep water. This is a kind of danger that feels almost unreal because it is so invisible. No flames, no giant wave, no obvious predator, just gas. And gas is terrifying precisely because you cannot see it coming. A lake like Kivu challenges our most basic assumptions about landscapes. Lakes are supposed to feel calm, restorative, safe. We associate them with reflection, silence, and life. But in rare cases, lakes can become reservoirs of hidden instability. That is what makes Lake Kivu so unsettling. Its surface tells one story, its depth tells another. Above, it looks peaceful enough to calm the mind. Below, it holds a chemical tension with potentially devastating consequences. And there is something especially disturbing about danger that is stored quietly, not happening yet, not obvious now. Just waiting, in a system that appears normal to anyone passing by. That kind of threat does something unusual to the imagination. It forces you to think not about what a place is doing now, but about what it could do. And sometimes, possibility is scarier than spectacle. Bikini Atoll looks like paradise. White sand, palm trees, coral reefs. Water so blue it almost doesn't look real. If someone showed you an image of it without context, you might think it was one of the most peaceful places on Earth. A place for diving, relaxation, escape. The kind of remote tropical beauty people dream about when they want to disappear from the world. But Bikini Atoll is one of the most haunting places on this list because its danger is not natural in the usual sense. It is historical. And that makes it, in some ways, even more disturbing. Because the threat here is tied to what human beings did to this place. Bikini Atoll became one of the most famous nuclear test sites in history. The landscape that now looks tranquil and untouched is also a place marked by radioactive contamination and the legacy of some of the most destructive weapons ever created. That contrast is almost unbearable when you think about it long enough. Paradise on the surface, catastrophe in memory. beauty in appearance, poison in consequence. What makes Bikini Atoll so unsettling is that it does not look ruined. It does not visually resemble disaster in the way many people expect. There are no obvious ruins announcing what happened there. The ocean is still beautiful. The palm trees still move in the wind. The sky is still bright. And yet the danger is real precisely because it is invisible. That may be one of the darkest forms of danger on Earth, the kind that remains after the explosion is over. If there's one place on this list that perfectly captures the phrase, "looks peaceful but is deadly," it is Lake Nyos. At first glance, it looks like a calm crater lake surrounded by green highlands. Still water, quiet scenery, no obvious sign of danger. Nothing in the view suggests that this place became the site of one of the most chilling natural disasters of modern times. And that is exactly why Lake Nyos is number one. In 1986, Lake Nyos released a massive cloud of carbon dioxide. The gas moved silently through nearby areas, killing around 1,700 people and thousands of animals. Think about how terrifying that is. No flames, no towering wave, no violent storm ripping through the night. Just an invisible cloud moving outward from what looked like a peaceful lake. This is one of the most deeply unsettling disasters in recorded history because it violated our expectations of how danger behaves. We think of lakes as stillness. We think of them as rest. We think of them as places where life gathers. Lake Nyos proved that under certain conditions, even a lake can become a silent weapon. And that silence matters. Most of the dangers humans fear are dramatic enough to register immediately. You see the fire, you hear the collapse, you feel the shaking. But carbon dioxide is different. It does not arrive with visual horror. It arrives by replacing the air. That is what makes the event at Lake Nyos so psychologically terrifying. It transformed one of nature's calmest symbols into something almost impossible to defend against if you did not understand what was happening. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these places shocked you the most? And which one looked the safest before you heard the real story? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy videos where mystery, history, and the darker side of reality come together, subscribe to Sherlock Hopes. Because sometimes, the strangest truths on Earth are hiding in the most beautiful places.